Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the next of our In Conversation with events. We're very grateful to welcome today the wonderful Jo Parkin, who is Executive Assistant to the CEO of Alpro. Welcome, Jo. How are you?
Good morning, or good afternoon as it is now, isn't it? Thank you so much for inviting me, and hopefully we'll make this a fun hour and an interesting hour for everyone as well.
Absolutely. I think these In Conversation with events have just gone down an absolute storm with our members. It's one of the things that came up last year in our focus groups was that they wanted to understand a little bit more about what other people's job roles are, what they do, what it's like working in different industries. So it's going to be great to hear your journey today. So what I thought we'd do, Jo, is just to get to know you a little bit more. So can you tell us a little bit about you as a person? I know we're going to hear about your job, but tell us a little bit about you, about your background.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a village in Cheshire, and then went off to university at Loughborough, and then was a student. Loved being a student, so carried on and did my master's degree just because I wanted to be a student though. And I obviously, well, I wasn't clever. I just had to work hard for it. But and then I went more. I basically, and from that I moved up to Scotland for a while and lived in lovely Edinburgh. And then it was about, getting on for 12, 13 years ago now, I moved down to Birmingham. So I live in the city centre of Birmingham. So it's a bit of a contrast from the countryside. I live in an apartment. I've got a lovely little pet chinchilla, because chinchillas sleep in the day and they're awake in the evening. So I couldn't have a dog, or I'm a dog person really, but I couldn't have a dog. So I've got a chinchilla that sleeps while I'm away working, and then he's waiting for me when I come back. So
that's brilliant. I always wanted a chinchilla when I was a kid. I begged my dad when I used to go into the pet shop and say, Dad, I was either that, a chinchilla or a chipmunk, and I think I ended up with a goldfish instead.
You can't catch chipmunks. Yeah. Chinchillas last for about 10, 15 years.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, they form a good bunch of friendship with you. But again, for people that are out working, obviously we're all working from home, a lot of us now, but I couldn't have a dog, even though I'd love to have a dog. So, yeah.
Very much the same as you. I'm a massive dog lover, but I live in a flat as well, Jo, and it's just really difficult with the hours that we work and the environment we're in. But no, what's your chinchilla called?
Stitch.
Stitch.
Yeah, I didn't name it. It was already named that because I got it from like a rehoming centre when he was like 6 months old. So yeah. Stitch. So,
oh, fantastic. So obviously you told us that you have gone to university, but you started out in a sales and marketing role.
I did. Yeah.
What was that like? How did you get that?
Yeah. So I'd already been doing my sales, and I was already training people. And then in the space of 3, 4, 5 years, I got up to running my own company within this organization. So I learned my people skills. Well, obviously I'd done bar work when I was a student. So I think my biggest skill was people skills. Wasn't necessarily administration or any of that. It was more, and then I started in a sales office. I then was running my office in Edinburgh. And then I ran it with my partner. And then due to various things, me and my partner split up. And so what I did was I moved down to Birmingham with a company to basically get more trained up and go on to do things. But they took me in then and took me away from the sales and made me a trainer, and then also made me sort of the office administrator. So I then started training sales, but then overseeing the admin team, and then became almost like his PA, office manager. And that's what sort of saw the change of me going through onto more of an administrative side, which is really weird because some people that are in the admin side want to move out into the sales or the marketing because they think that's where the career will be. I actually did the opposite, and I moved into the PA admin side of it.
I think it's really interesting because I don't think I've ever come across that before. Ever. I don't think I've ever spoken to anybody that's started out in a sales role and then moved into more of an administrative role or a support role in that respect. So was it quite intense? Like was it really intense?
When it was a marketing company with, I don't know, 50, 100 staff going in, but really it was only, let's say, the top director and then his 6 directors in different countries. And I was doing the sales and looking after the people in that office, and then looking after the assistants, and then coordinating the PAs from different offices, from about 5 offices, I think it was at the time. But it was more a small, you say it was a small, medium-sized company, but from where I am now, I look at that and I go, that was more a small office. The main office was in Birmingham. And that's why I got my apartment literally around the corner, so I could get up and walk around the corner to it. And I started looking after, because I'd already sort of been a manager of an office on my own company, I sort of knew what the managing director needed. And I started giving him all the stuff that he needed, more and more so, with his travel, his papers, or evaluations on people, or what's going on in the office. So that was a slow change that I didn't really seem to notice much difference. I think the biggest changes probably were then when I came out of that environment and then went into the corporate environment. And then that was a shock.
I think, I can relate to you. In my previous role, I reported into the head of sales and marketing, and I love her to bits. And she won't mind me saying this, but she had a team of, well, there was 13 in the marketing department and 2 of us in sales. And a lot of people say, I've never been a PA before officially, but my boss was always the type of person, she'd walk into a room, she'd make a decision, and we were the ones that needed to, do what she said, basically, and put that into place and put that into action, whether that's for the reports that she needed, or, emails that needed to be sent, or appointments that she wanted to have with people. And I think you're right. I think you do end up doing things without actually realizing that you're doing it sometimes, and it's purely because you've got those people at that level who are just making those decisions and rolling with them and supporting them as much as you possibly can. Yeah. So did that come to a natural end to you, or did you think, right now I need to look for a new opportunity, I want something completely different?
No, well, it was part of the same organization. So what I did was, obviously, being on the sales and the marketing side of it, and then the training side of it. And then he said he had an opening there, and I started doing 50-50, and then it just moved completely into that side of it. And I enjoyed it. And then it was obviously not being out and about or training people up, doing sales out and about. It was more in the office side of it, so I could give my body a bit of a rest, rather than being out and about for 10-12 hours a day. So that, when I was I was still at a younger age then, but it was just, I just sort of slid into that side, but I enjoyed it so much. I loved the coordination. I loved getting everything sorted, or whether there's a problem, or coordinating people, getting them together. You'd hear one person say this, one person say that, right, let's just get the, and I think that's what a lot of our jobs are to do, as well as just people walk in and say, can you do this, can you do that? It's coordinating a lot, whether it's people in your office, whether it's meetings, agendas, and then that gets on a bigger scale then as you move into whatever size of company you work for, or however the director or vice president or CEO that you work for, it just suddenly starts growing and growing and growing more. And then you obviously grow with confidence as well as you move through.
And has the training element really supported you with your role? Has that been something, giving back and delivering training, and you've always got that listening ear, haven't you, like you were just saying, and you always pick out things that people have said, and you've always got something that you can give back to them, or advice and support. So would you say that's been a big part of your journey?
Yeah, I think, well, when I started more necessarily into the new, or into Alpro or the corporate world, you see a lot. For us, there was, talk about PowerPoint overload, slide decks going backwards and forwards, create these slides, do this, do that. And I used those slide decks to learn about the business. So at the end of a meeting, or if I was traveling with someone, or I was sitting down or having a coffee with someone, I'd get the slide deck and I go, can I ask you questions? What's this? I understand net profit. I understand that profit. And I actually wanted them to explain to me the full table of it was profit and loss on a much bigger scale, the COGS, the running costs. What is that? What is that? What is that? Right. Because if I'm in a room and I'm taking minutes and they're using all coded language, it doesn't matter. And if I move to another company now, I'd have to do exactly the same. So it's a case of putting your learning hat on, but asking, don't be afraid to ask the questions, because it'll take you a good 6 months. But for me, it took me a good 6 months to get my head around the codes, the lingo, everything else, until I started feeling comfortable where I knew what was going on.
So how did you hear about the opportunity at Alpro?
I'd been I made a change. Obviously, they were reducing staff, so I got made redundant. I'd never wrote a CV before in my life, so I had a few bottles of wine for a few days, and then a cheesecake as well. And then I got my CV sorted and got it all checked and everything. And then I started probably doing exactly the same thing as my sales and played the numbers game. And I had a logbook and I applied and I knew some people would apply for 2 or 3 a day. My goal was 10 jobs a day. And I went in 3 areas actually. I did cover myself with sales, I covered myself with the training side of it, and then I covered myself with the PA side of it. And it just so happened that after some of the interviews that I went to for the PA and exec assistant, that's the direction that I went, which was actually was my number 1 choice anyway, because I loved it.
Fantastic. So I think there, the lesson I think we've, is persistence. And
Gosh, yeah.
a lot of us either have, been through the difficult time of either facing redundancy or being made redundant and trying to find a new role. And it's still a very similar situation that people are in at the moment. But I think the message there is definitely persistence. 10 jobs a day, that's great. When you have to fill out a lot of information now online and covering information, covering letters,
but also editing. Every time my CV or covering letter was never the same. It was always edited to fully to that job brief as well, so you could pick points of what your skills are to that role. Yeah. So that was the biggest thing that I probably took from my sales and dealing with customers and navigating and finding the right information for the right person. It's exactly the same when I started through on the finding a new role as I was going through my career. Yeah.
So where was Alpro in the kind of world that when you joined? Whereabouts was it then? Because it's obviously, I mean, I love Alpro because I have all the different milks and the yogurts and everything. Whereabouts was it then? Because
it was outside the top 100 grocery brands, because I think it was after a year of me working with them, we hit the top 100 grocery brands. Yes, they've got obviously all the soya milk and some of the yogurts, and they just brought out, I think, almond milk as well, and maybe coconut and some different. So they started diversifying into the different products. So yeah, it was global, it was international, with a head office in the UK head office in Birmingham, but also a huge head office in Ghent, Belgium, because the company was originally Belgium. So it was a gentleman that started, he wanted to find a way to be more sustainable, and he went traveling and he basically saw people making soya milk, and obviously in Asia, and they make it fresh, but there was never a way of making that fresh product that you could sell in the supermarkets because it just wouldn't last. So they always made it fresh. So he found a way of obviously processing it, just like we do with my milk, and pasteurize it and put it in cartons. He found a way of almost like pasteurizing the soya milk and being able to then bottle it, so then it can be distributed across. And the whole reason for it was because he was quite a wealthy man, was to find something that was more sustainable. So that I loved the company philosophy of being, good for the planet as well as good for the health.
100%. I mean, was it when you started at Alpro, did you take over from somebody else, or was the role new to you?
Yes, there was a lady that she just had a baby. She'd come back from maternity leave, and then she decided that she was basically going to obviously take a back step and move on. So when I got offered, there was a lady there that was there for, I think, 3 days. Wow. So a 3-day handover, and then just thrown in the deep end.
And was that challenging to kind of make your mark at at such a fast growing company? You've got to learn the ropes, obviously, learn about all the different personalities that you'll be working with, and start to make your mark. How did you find that? Was that challenging?
Yes, I walked in an office, and it was at that time there was desks everywhere, all around a centre building. And then there was the director's office, and then my office. And obviously everyone kept walking in and out of my office and saying hi. I'm trying to remember faces because it was about 50 or 60 of them that were all there. And then just the processes and the systems and getting IT to log you on and getting it all ready. And then you've got all these jobs to do, but you can't get on the systems. Usual setup things of everything. But yeah, meeting the people, really friendly, I thought, as well. It was really nice to meet the team, but then that was, it was important that I made a good first impression around them as well. So yeah.
And were you supporting Sue then at that time as well?
No, it was a gentleman I was supporting, a very quiet gentleman, completely different to Sue. Yeah. He wouldn't really say much. He was very, and that was really crazy because the previous manager, before that, and originally I'd worked with a Canadian, and sales directors and managers are like, hey, very lively, very loud, foot on desk, and if there was something wrong, you knew about it. To go to that environment where the managing director didn't really say an awful lot, it was the complete extreme. And it took me a good 6-8 months to really get to know him slowly and find out more about him and his ways of working. So I had to tone it down a bit, coming from a lively sales and marketing office to more that. But obviously the people in the company, which were sales and marketing of Alpro and accounts, they were all great and lively. But it was, the director that I had to look after was very softly spoken, very quiet, didn't raise his voice.
Was he a thinker, Jo? Because
yes.
when they ponder, don't they, for quite some time.
I couldn't get a straight answer out of him a lot of the time. So I was like, so I gave him 2 options. Which do you want to do, that one or that one? Well, whatever you think best, Jo. And you're like, oh, come on. All right, I'll make a decision. Let's go. So in the end, I started stepping up and making decisions, and hopefully, but putting them past him. But yes, it was hard. That was a hard change for me.
So effectively then, the proactiveness, it was really interesting actually, because just before I was our interview, I was talking to Lucy Brazier, and we had the network leaders, and we were talking about the new global skills matrix that's coming out, and it was talking about the difference between an assistant and a strategic assistant, how proactive they are. So were you finding then, rather than kind of sitting on those decisions and waiting for him to do something, you were just like, well, here's 2 options, which would you like?
Yeah,
please pick one.
I suppose. And when I came into the company and then started mixing with a lot of all the international PAs as well as different ones, it was a case of, don't get me wrong, there's all different sides and people have different goals for their roles, but some people would just, is there any French on this call today at all? Or not?
Anyone French?
I hope not. Okay, but obviously cultures are different. And you find a lot of the French assistants are yes sir, no sir, amen. So they would never ever make a decision. They just get the information. If I'm not told to do that, I won't do that. And I think sometimes if it's good to build your confidence, it's good to just start putting it in front of them, because they want their information quickly, but then start helping them make those decisions, because they've got all the other business meetings to go on with and everything else. So it's up to us to start trying to navigate them in the best possible way they can through their business day, through their business week. And so, I think I definitely had some of those skills that, I stayed quiet, but sometimes it would get frustrating if I hadn't been able to do that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And when did that transition change then from your previous manager to working with Sue?
That was probably 1.5 years later. I just got in charge of looking after him. And then the company was growing so fast. They explain it like a football team where it's the premiership and you obviously change. So they wanted a change of management. So then they brought Sue in, which was really great, because about 80% of all of the directors of the company, just the way it had been previously, were male. So having more females in there was great. And it was the first time I'd ever worked with a female boss. And so I was very honored, and it was great.
And I think that's what one of the things kind of I wanted to invite you to talk to today, because I know what a fantastic relationship you have together, but it's very unusual, really. You don't, a lot of people that I know support male leaders rather than female leaders. If you're talking to 10 people, there might be 2 out of them that are supporting females rather than males. So did you find it completely different culture shock for you then, working with a female leader?
Yeah, I suppose there was a gap in between where there was a really lively vice president that was looking after the UK. So I went straight back into my old ways of looking after a lively, trying to calm them down person. And then Sue came along and she was almost like in the middle. And yeah, it was great. It was just really nice, you know. It might be something like coming in or going, oh, I've baked a scone. Do you want a scone, Jo? You know, that was just, it's little things like that that you just go, yeah, she's always trying to stuff me with her beautiful baked cheese scones when I'm on a diet. And yeah, so yeah, and tea, like she drinks tea, but in Belgium they don't make tea. So it was a major thing trying to say, I need to the hotels, I need tea, but I need cold milk. No, I need some cold milk in the tea with it, please. And just, yeah. So, yeah, but it's great looking after those little things as well. So no, I'd say I'm not saying some of the male guys obviously were caring and everything else, but it's just different looking after, it is different looking after a female. But yeah, but other than that, it's still the same. You still have fun, you still can coordinate, you still, but it's still working out what their thinking is and what they need and just becoming that partnership with them.
So when I remember the time when we met up and you were going through the international change. So can you tell us a little bit about, because going through such a massive transition like that and going to a global scale where you're suddenly thrust into a world of working with lots of different source markets, a lot of different personalities, a lot of different cultures, traveling so much. I know you travel a lot, Jo, don't you? How did that, you know, you obviously you've grown with Sue as she's gone through her transition, you've gone through yours as well.
Yeah. I suppose I was always challenging myself. I'd taken on the facilities of the office. That wasn't in my job description, but as you know, started doing more. I then had to be left with, because the international facilities director had gone and I was assisting him to find a new location and a new building for the HQ and rebrand it and have it as a proper like Google, Facebook building. And then the international facilities guy left. And then rather than me say, right, well, who's assisting, who's taking over? I just went, I'll do it. So then I was dealing with estate agents, lawyers. So I took on a lot more. So then when Sue became vice president, first of all, before she became CEO, there was an assistant that was dedicated to that vice president. And for a short spell, they looked after Sue for Belgium and I looked after her for the UK because we were getting a replacement UK director. So she was looking after UK and doing vice president and backwards and forwards from Belgium, and then covering Netherlands, Germany, most of Europe, backwards and forwards. But then I think there was a difference from working with different PAs over in Belgium. Some of them, Sue couldn't get hold of them. If it was gone, well, 4 o'clock or anything, then it's 5 o'clock in Belgium. There was no answering the phone. And when you've got a person that's obviously that much working and traveling backwards and forwards, you need to manage, help them and assist them all the way through. So I think there was difficulties there. So in the end, it was better. And those people didn't want the demands. They weren't getting on because they didn't like the demands as well. So therefore, it became decided that obviously because of what I'd been doing in the UK, that I took on that role and became the assistant to the vice president. So when I look back at it, I go, right, it was all the things that I was doing and ticking all those boxes that then, so really that role was actually based in Belgium, but I then took the role, and it wasn't because I was working with Sue before, it was just, I looked after all of the travel. I looked after every little detail. I was available all the time. So then I was able to do it. And then that was a big change because I wouldn't travel with her all the time, but I had to learn then how to work and get snippets of her time on an hour on the plane or an hour in the car, and we would then be traveling, whether it be in the evening, meetings all day. I'd then get her back to the hotel, we'd have dinner, we'd open laptop, I'd then get her for an hour or so, and then so I would travel with her probably about 25% of the time, backwards and across, mainly backwards. So I had an office in Ghent and I have an office in Birmingham. So I've got a house plant that is being looked after by my colleagues in Ghent, or an office plant. And my office plant in Birmingham is probably not very happy at the moment because I've not really been in there. So it's a bit different having two offices, because then you go to your Ghent office and everyone's robbed all your IT equipment or robbed your mouse, so it's just, what are you doing? I know I'm not here for a week, but come on, not me. So I'm like, And also, I suppose the language. I was terrible at French. I speak a little bit of Spanish. So usually you'd say an international PA working and traveling would have to speak numerous languages. I don't. I speak slow English, sign language, and a lot of people in all the businesses in Europe speak English as well.
Yeah, when I worked for Thomas Cook, our international language was British, but English, sorry, but a lot of our reps are from Belgium, either the Flemish side or the French side, or they were also from France, Germany, etc. And it was quite challenging actually, but we found that everybody really wanted to learn from each other and try and understand a lot of what we were doing. So, but it was quite difficult when we merged together. I personally found that really challenging. But what did you, because you had to kind of integrate with all of the PA team that were over there as well. How did that
go? That was really, I suppose, different, because it was almost like I'd taken over, I suppose, a Belgian job. And I was coming in, and I was also traveling as well, where a lot of them would just come in the morning and go home at night, and that's all they do. But then I think as they got to know me, and obviously I just was always fun around them and made it fun and helped them and built friendships, because a lot of them, even though they were in the same building, I found out that many of them didn't even meet up for a coffee or for lunch. And I know there's a lot of buildings like that which are full of assistants, as we've spoke about before, and they've never met face to face or had a proper conversation for a long period of time. And it was all email backwards and forwards, whereas I was a person that would pick up the phone. So I'd spoken to them on the phone quite a few times before big video call came in a lot of the time and everything else. But so then when I was there, before I went there, I would try and make 5 minutes and go, are you free for lunch? Are you free for a coffee break? Let's meet up. And that helped a big. So I was going into this new office, but then I was meeting up with people. So then I knew them. So when we'd meet at the coffee machine or in the lift, I'd go, oh, hi. And they go, oh, Jo, you're back. Brilliant. So I think forming the friendships. And then I think as well, they realized that it wasn't just me having, a jolly up or having a holiday. They could see the hours that I was working or what I was doing. So then I probably, the respect probably started coming from there as well. Just because, it is full on right the way through. And then I'm back in the office early in the morning with her at 7 to prepare for meetings till 8. So it's a case of, you have to show. To earn the respect, you have to show it as well, but also being there to assist them, help them. And then obviously you'd get people then walking up and saying, oh, you sorted this out for me, Jo, thank you, we've never met. And I was like, oh, brilliant. So yeah, people used to knock to come in my office door, and I hated that. I was just, come in, don't you, so yeah, the culture's different. They're very quiet in Belgium. It takes a while to get to know people. So in an office in the UK, we made it lively. It was fun, a bit like I say, Facebook or Google, if you can imagine it. Going into an office when I used to first go into Belgium, all the desks would be out, all in rows, and there'd be people dotted around, and I'd see someone that I knew, and I was like, oh, familiar face. And they've been over in the UK office, and I used to go up to them and go, oh, hi, and we start chatting. And then I realized that the noise level was really like library. And everyone was turning around going, who's that? And I'm like, oh, that's where I noticed the biggest difference. So I was like, oh, sorry. So I had to sort of merge into how they were a bit, but then also make it fun and be approachable.
Yeah, I don't do well in open plan either, Jo.
Like me.
Open plan, but it's great though, because I think you bring that life and that energy, and it can also help people build their confidence and talk, get talking to each other, as you say, reaching out and being really organized and just saying, let's have a coffee, let's have some lunch, when you're going to be in Ghent, when you can get over there. So
but I think the big point to it is that I try and say this to a lot of the PAs that come to me in my organization, is so many people think the PA is the person in the background, is the person that shouldn't speak, shouldn't be seen, shouldn't be heard, and they're there for you to go in and ask them to do things. I'm almost like I'm right behind my executive or my director, supporting and doing everything for it. But everyone in my company then know I'm out there, and I make myself known and friendly, and yeah, it makes everyone else's life more fun, and it makes our life more fun, because then we build our connections a lot more.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, how have you adapted to the virtual world? And obviously when COVID hit, you can see how those relationships are really important to you. How did that has that
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, we'd gone into crisis mode anyway in February, being a food company. So we were on high alert. We shut our offices down at the beginning of March. And to be all of a sudden, Sue, to be my CEO now, to be holed up in a house. And then it was all, obviously we'd used WebEx, but obviously they upgraded it and different video calls. So all of a sudden it was training everybody else up who just relied on other people to set the meeting up and walk in the meeting room, and they just attended. And all of a sudden it's all on our shoulders to do. Immediately, obviously, it was very hard doing it with Sue. Obviously, you could do the phone calls and everything else we'd done. So what I did was, obviously, I'm a single person living on my own, but I bubbled with Sue. So I drove from Birmingham to Rugby, which is about 45 minutes an hour. 45 minutes at the beginning when lockdown, because there was no cars on the road whatsoever. And I bubbled with her. So once a week or twice a week, or if there's big calls, I would come here, and then we would do, and then it was obviously speaking, recording her on my mobile phone, and I got a tripod, so all her speeches were sent out. So yeah, I became camera person. It was just adapting, and then having IT on super dial when they answer as well.
Yeah. No, I mean,
So
that is just, I think that is a massive, show of commitment and to supporting Sue, because she would have been, if you weren't able to be together, or if to support her through that must have been really quite challenging.
yeah, but also you make fun of it as well. And even though we were all in the same, we're all in extreme situations, and whether people have been furloughed or working solid hard, I think it's just find the best solution that works for you. If it worked, it made my life easy. I wasn't waiting by the phone going, she's got to finish this call. Is she going to answer my text? Does she want this meeting in? Are we doing this? We've got to record this. Is she going to record herself? I need the video. It was just easier and also mentally it was good for me, because it meant I could get out of my apartment. Yes, I had a little private garden down below I could go to, but it actually meant I physically and mentally had a reason, obviously as an essential worker working for the food company, but then I could go out in my car safe and go to my extended bubble and then come back again. So yeah, I did it for my own choice as well as assisting Sue.
I think that's amazing. When you told me that as well, I thought to myself, wow, again, I've not heard that before, but I think it's just it's fantastic, because
you've got to think what as well. Look at your day, and if there's things that you're not happy with on your day, and things that you're not liking, or things that you're getting bored with, find a way of changing it, because otherwise it's become, and I'm always looking at new ways of it, it's become sort of like diary management, putting meetings and video calls in every hour, and they're moving and changing it, and it just seems like you spend a whole day doing that sometimes. So I have to find at the moment some new exciting things to do, or a new project that I then stop and don't look at diaries and don't look at emails, and I work on my project for half an hour, something to keep me alive all the time.
Yeah, no, definitely. What's been your biggest personal challenge for all of this? Has it been that with the way of working and trying to kind of keep in contact with everybody, keep everybody together, keep everybody motivated? Have you been that person that's always been the glue that's had to kind of do that?
Yeah, I suppose, I don't know, I think yes, over the last year it's been a huge challenge. It has just been I thought every year was busy, but this just went threefold. And I can't wait to get away and go on holiday, and as soon as we're allowed to go and Thailand opens its borders up, I'm straight there. But and I'll desert Sue for 2-3 weeks and go bye. But no, I think for me, coming from the sales and marketing background, and obviously being my own boss and running my own company, sometimes the big global companies can put you in a position as just PA, or whatever, white collar, or however, obviously the Europeans call it white collar, factories blue collar, and then you've got management. And for me, it was always having progression, having something to strive for, and having something I enjoy, and progressing as far as until I'm happy at that stage. And sometimes you feel like, no, there's no room for you to progress. That is your position. But you can progress, you can take on more responsibilities, you can become more respected in the company, and then you can become more relied on. And I think my biggest challenge was having a look at some of the Europeans, and their attitudes were, well, no, that's your slot, that's where you go. And in the end, what I did was took more on. I kept taking more on. I became more responsible. Some of my responsibilities were then management level. And then I took on the health and safety side of it, and with the facility side of it, and delivering the new office and the new building, that's when I was able to then sit down and go, right, this is what I do. This is all my responsibilities. This is my level or my pay or my grading or whatever. I think there's something a bit out of sync here. And that's when they then discuss and go, okay. And then all of a sudden you start getting your promotions as well, moving up. But each time I've always done more than what my role entailed, and then gone, I think you need to up me. I don't wait for them to say, we want to offer you this position, and then I've got to learn it. I'll do it automatically. And there's lots of different responsibilities, whether it's saving the company money is always a lovely, nice, big one that they absolutely, you're creating value. Or whether it's, you know, just people relying on you and their schedules that, you know, if it gets handed to someone else, it's all just going to probably fall apart. That's when all of a sudden they do not want to, obviously they rely on you, and, you know, you're worth it. You've upped your worth.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice, Jo, because I think we all try to, it's having those difficult conversations, isn't it? You know, we're human, and trying to, I was watching something last night with Kathy Burke on Channel 4. Brilliant. One of I absolutely love her, and she said one of the worst things we do as humans is we hate talking about money. And it's you know, at performance reviews, or I don't know, you know, can I ask for more, and how do I do that, and what's the best thing for me to say? But I think having that and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, working on different projects and saying, well, actually, this is what I've achieved. And I love the way you phrased it as well. I don't think these quite match up to each other. I absolutely love that. I think that's brilliant.
And then also what you can do, little tip, is basically do all the extra roles and do the different things that interest you. Find things that interest you or that challenge you. Otherwise you'll hate them and you'll go, why am I taking all these extra roles? But you know, whether it was all, I looked at the whole running costs of the office, and I went, right, my goal is this, this, and this. And I didn't get a bonus for hitting my goals or anything like that. I just got my goals set. And then at the end of the year, it was factual on what I'd achieved. But then I started understanding it more, doing it more, and then enjoying it, but also having a challenge. So I'd do all of my LPA, and then I'd be jumping into that. And then the health and safety. And now I'm WISE manager. I'm health and safety manager, as well as PA to executive assistant to CEO. I'm WISE health and safety manager for the offices in 4 countries, implementing all of the health and safety programs right the way through. But I've taken that on as something that also keeps my brain alive and gives me that responsibility as well. But because I've got that, I've now got manager in my title, and therefore all the vice presidents, directors, global, suddenly start, you know, giving you even more respect. And it's just, yeah, that's the main one I'd say, is just pushing yourself, taking on as much as whatever you can. And then all you do is, as well, if it was facilities or if it's that, and you're not happy with your situation at the moment, then find out, you know, what the average is in your area for what you're doing. Print it off, and then you sit with the HR and your manager, and you just go, this is the average, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positions here. Look at the salary. This is the average, and this is me. And they just sit there. But you've got to have the facts, and you've got to be able to prove that what you're doing is that as well.
Yeah.
So I do it, yeah, and I might get frustrated or emotional sometimes because it's really hard doing. I admit it, but no. So yeah, that's probably why I've been able to. And obviously having a close relationship with Sue, I can be honest with her, and she can be honest with me as well. And then she can also be my, you know, my career advisor as well on what's the best way. So, you know, I've got that relationship with her now.
And fantastic. And I think, you know, I've seen you around on the circuit, Jo. You know, I think you've been to the PA show to talk a few times, haven't you? I went to that event at Millennium Point where you were on the panel. Do you like doing those types of the kind of panel discussions? And is that your training side coming out?
Yeah, it's my training side coming back. And also just, I like, obviously, I suppose it's the quality of an assistant, isn't it? I like helping people. like helping people, but then also feeling like you've done something to help others, you've done something nice, but also putting it down, it also makes you feel a bit proud doing it. It's a nice, happy moment for you, and we need to find those happy moments. And, you know, I'm being proud of them. But I think it also is another reason that it's something to look forward to. I went to the PA events, obviously, before, and the shows, and I got so much from them. I found them energizing, you know, the workshops, and same as what we've got here. The workshops, I loved bipping in. All the trade shows and the stands, you could walk around, you could have a really good day of it. And because I was traveling from Birmingham, I got my hotel, so it was like an escape. It was like, at that time I wasn't traveling, so it was like an escape. I'll go to London, thank you. But it was really good. I came back energized, and that energy would last another 3-4 months for me. It was like a little top up. And it also filled my black book up of contacts, whether it was colleagues, people workers in my similar situation, whether it was tips from agency people, whatever, even, you know, hotels. I loved meeting people and forming those good relationships, because that's your work environment. And so when they asked me to speak, and then I decided, and I loved doing it as well. It was good fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it'd be great to get back out there again. I think September's a very busy month. There is so much going on, including our conference on the 9th of September, which we're really looking forward to as well. It's going to be virtual. I wish it was face-to-face, but I think we're just being a little bit cautious. You spoke about events, Jo, when we were at that. And I know a couple of people on the call will be really interested to hear at the moment. What's your stance on events at the moment? What's kind of, how do you feel about them? How does Alpro feel about them?
We've done 2 big, I've got some conferences that involve the whole of Europe on the senior management level, and then I've got the board of directors for, obviously, globally, and they go off and do things, and it's usually a 2-day event for them, so they all come in from their different countries. And then the big one for all the senior managers, is an event of like 500 people. And we used to have them all in for 2 days somewhere, team activity meeting. Over this last year, we've had to do virtual. So I've put Sue in a TV studio, obviously green wall, designed it all as an Alpro. It was a bit like X Factor or Britain's Got Talent, but it was an Alpro TV studio. And then we had and then I got the boxes sent out in advance to get everyone excited, but they were all individually wrapped in the box. It was beautiful with a gold ribbon, and they could only open one little first thing at the top of the box. The rest was all sealed in different bags, and it was like cocktails and ice cubes, and they had to put the ice cubes in the freezer. So they all got excited about it. So it was finding new ways to get excited. Hard going, usually you get them all in and it's all travel and getting them all through, and then the decks, and this time it was all pre-recorded videos, slides, and then managing in almost like in a TV studio, going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 live, and obviously Sue on speaking live, being the host going forward in between different ones. Great fun. Amazing, never done it before, and absolutely loved it. Did it a second time, but boy, is it tiring. This, at the moment, there is still a craving to get everyone face to face. So we've got, at the moment, I'm planning in Europe, on the coast of Netherlands, because that means Belgians can drive to Netherlands. At the moment, they're allowed to. Germany can go across as well. It's just the UK, whether the UK will be able to go in September or whether they have to quarantine on the way back. So again, and we'll do it on the beach. So we've got a hotel with villas all going around a bay. So hopefully it'll be in person. And there's another event as well, but the backup B is still virtual as well. I've still got a backup B plan. Going forward on that, the smaller meetings where people used to travel for them, no, I think they're going to be sometimes virtual as well. They may be, because some people are working from home, and if we're going on a policy of work part-time home, part-time office, then it'd be nice. I think what's going to happen with the departments is they're going to meet up in a hotel once a month for a meeting and a catch up, because video calls are they're great, but it doesn't beat the face-to-face contact and getting out and finding an unusual location to meet up in.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, no, it's exciting to get back to that again, but I completely know, Jo, a virtual event I had no idea that you have to, it's planning to the second.
It is to the second, isn't it? Because if it goes
go,
past 1 second, you go, no, you're live. You're on.
you get a list, like literally the running order, and it's like 0101.1, and it's like you've got to plan to that second and have something come in and that one come in, and it's mad, it's crazy. So
yeah, and I had an earpiece in with, because it was linked to Belgium's TV studio, and then it was streaming out live. So Belgium was saying to me, we had some awards, and for example, they were live, so we had people in different countries round the corner from people's addresses that I knew, and I knew they were getting awards, but they didn't. So we had someone in the Belgium football Ghent stadium. There was 5, 6 people there, all self-distancing in the Alpro box. They were all, it was a Viking thing. They were all dressed up as Vikings. Other people were at their homes. So the one at the home in Paris, we said, right, Sue would say, we've got an award to give out. And they'd be like, oh, we go, right, let's see live where they are. And it's almost like exactly handing over. And then you had a person go, right, well, this is the street I'm on. And you're like, and everyone's looking. And then they rang the doorbell. Obviously, they didn't give the name and the number or anything, but they rang the doorbell. And the person's, obviously, we could see on our cameras that they were looking, but they weren't. They were like, oh, are they outside my house? We were like, yeah, they're not moving. So we had to say, Sue, time to move. And in the end, they came down and they had a camera on them. And they basically spoke live and got the award. And then we turned up, and then we were walking down a corridor, and it was in the football stadium. So, of course, the 6 people who were in the box were all like, and again, they get the award. So that made it quite interesting, having almost like doorstep awards across the countries. But that was a hugely, again, you're going live, you're coordinating it, but they're also, we're finding out if that person has got signal. Is it tested? Is it fine? Are they round the corner from the house? Are you ready to go? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. It's just, but great fun. And it's a new skill. Just exactly. As we're all learning, aren't we?
To coordinate that globally in different countries is just like crazy. And I tried to look at it last year for our awards, and I realised how complicated it was to have. We had a bit of recorded, a bit of live, and I know how expensive.
Have a lot of recorded. So at least you get a 5-minute breather because the recording's going on. Yeah,
absolutely. But talking of awards, you are a finalist in the PA of the Year category this year. How are you feeling?
Oh, excited. Yes, thank you, Dan. And thank you to you and all of the committee for organising it and doing everything. You do an amazing job. It's not easy. And I know it doesn't take 5 minutes. It takes a lot of effort. So thank you. But no, immensely proud, immensely, to be surrounded by some great girls as well. Hopefully we might get some guys in there as well. But great, really good. So
what's the feeling? What's the feeling from Alpro? How is it? Have you got a lot of support?
I'm getting congratulations coming in. As you know, I reposted it last night, so there's lots of people, and there's quite a few from Alpro that I didn't even know were on my LinkedIn. So they're all so it's all it's great news.
Brilliant, isn't it? I think it's interesting. LinkedIn is as a space. I think when you post things on there, and you don't realise sometimes who you connected to, and actually the floods of support. I mean, my notifications, I'm still getting notifications of congratulations from people from all different posts from like weeks ago that are still coming through. And
I thought, oh, Dan's posting this. His inbox is going to be exploding.
Yeah, I love it. That's exactly what I want to see. We need this positivity. We want this support.
But also on that point as well, Dan, you were speaking to me, gosh, when was that now? Even, was it 4 years ago? And going, oh, come on, you need to put in for the awards. And I was the person that was, no, I'm too busy. No. And you were like, come on. And so if anyone's on the call and you're all going, no. For next year, definitely, if you haven't already done so, do it.
Awesome. That's brilliant. And we've got, I did have some questions sent in advance, Jo. So please just bear with me because I was jumping from call to call. If anyone's got any questions, please pop them in the chat box. Just bear with me 1 second. Oh, I can't find it in my inbox. Bear with me. Oh, there we go. So Jo, how do you keep your team of worldwide assistants motivated to bring the best version of themselves to work?
The big one for international is the word thank you. So many people rush emails backwards and forwards and different ones. If you've asked them to do something, or they come back and they go, I've done that, I've sorted it. Really, that was the biggest one, is saying thanks or how great they are, and giving them the recognition they deserve. And then if they're struggling with something, I had one assistant, for example, last week, She was a more quieter person. And the team of people, the global marketing team, are really marketing people. So they're very loud, they're very demanding, they're very lively. And then when she gets on the call with other assistants, they're trying to find a slot or a diary, and other assistants go, no, and you're not getting anywhere. You've gone past a month, 2 months, and you're like, no, this meeting needs to happen. And it needs someone sometime. And then, so I was trying to teach her how to say, no, ladies, this is really important, and give them a deadline of when it has to happen. Because otherwise they're just going to look, some people will look at the diaries and not want to move meetings. It'll just be, oh, that's going to cause me work. No, sorry, they're busy. And it's trying to just take control of a situation with the other PA. So some of them I've been teaching on how, and that means the calls happen quicker and we all get on and we're all efficient quicker, because you don't have someone that's more nervous or shy or not, and therefore they're struggling to get a meeting in because everyone else is pushing back on them. So yeah, it's just giving them the little tips and teaching them, when you're trying to do something, give people a deadline, and say what the reason is and how, if it's urgent or an urgency between 1 and 10, how urgent is it? And then, yeah, they're going to have to clear schedules. It's probably easier for me because I'm at CEO level. So anything my boss requires, anyone underneath has to clear diaries for. So it's a bit, but it's still not easy. And then obviously on Fridays, what I used to try and do as well as I used to give all the PAs, I started something as well, was Happy Friday moments. And at like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, especially during lockdown, I started finding funny messages or quotes and then saying, everyone else carry it on. And it was more just, you've made it through the week. It's Friday. You've done another week. We've got another week of this crisis done. But just something funny, or have a lovely glass of wine this weekend, ladies and gents and everyone. So having that where you've just, how long does it take to send a funny email to people?
Yeah, I think it's nice, a bit different in the inbox as well, isn't it, sometimes? And just one last question. We got the other question that I had was, if there was one thing you could change about your role, what would it be and why?
Good question. One thing I could change about my role. Well, one thing that I am changing, just I think, and that's me and my skills as well, is I've always been a person that's taken on challenges and agrees to everything and does everything. And before you know it, you find that all direct people in a team below, or directors or managers, don't necessarily approach their assistant to do their own PA to do stuff. They'll come to me because it's obviously they need to find time of Sue, but instead of getting availability of my boss and then going to their PA and get them to organize the meetings, it was all coming to me. And I think over this last year and a half, I've just looked at what I've been taking on, and realized that sometimes my stress levels, I'm not getting to the gym as often, I'm not getting out, sometimes I can be on the laptop all the time. That for me, mentally, I was taking on too much. So if I was to change anything, probably recognize that quicker to do something about it, and then be more as in pushing back or going, sorry, if you need that doing, it will have to happen next week. I obviously prioritize, but in a crisis mode, you tend to just go next, and you're just juggling the balls in the air. And at some point, those balls get too many, and it's just recognizing the signs of when they get too many and putting us at almost like blockage on going forward until you've got rid of all those balls in the air.
I think those are great nuggets of advice to finish on. And thank you so much, Jo, for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us. I think I love these interviews. Always get me really going for the rest of the day. And it's just fantastic to get an insight into more and more of our members. So thank you so much for joining us, Jo. Thanks, everybody.
And welcome. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely weekend, and hopefully England win tonight. Not that that's a PA conversation, but
I love that.